So we got our 6'6", 7-foot medium spinning rod. We're throwing this 5-inch stickworm on it, but now we need to expand our arsenal to go catch more bass in more areas. Stay tuned, we're going to talk about that. Hey folks, welcome back to Casting with Kirk. I'm Kirk, glad you could join me today. So we've got our medium spinning rod. This is a very versatile rod when it comes to throwing lures. We've already talked about the 5-inch stickworm being rigged as a split shot rig. And I went through a video where I talked about 7 different ways that I like to rig up a 5-inch stickworm. There are a lot of lures out there now that we can throw with this singular rod, and we're going to discuss that today. Go ahead and grab yourself a cup of coffee. It's cold out here in the Midwest. It's a high of like 26 degrees today. We still have open water, so I'm hoping maybe later this week I can actually get out on the water and see if I can catch some really cold water bass. All right, so the first one I'm going to talk about that you can throw with a medium spinning rod is a 1.5 squarebill, they're called. You can throw this thing year-round. Works really good on light line because you can get a really good long distance cast. It also works good for throwing up close around targets, docks, and laydowns, bouncing it off of rocks, ripping it across weeds. They usually come in a weight of about 3/8 ounce. Most of your medium rods will handle that type of weight. So this is a really good one. You can cover a lot of water and catch a lot of bass with a 1.5 squarebill. The second one that we're going to talk about is a medium diving crankbait. A lot of your medium diving crankbaits, if you can find smaller ones, will run anywhere from 6 to 8 feet deep. The squarebill will run you about 3 to 4. This sometimes, even on light line, you can get these down to 10 feet deep. You're going to find those deeper bass in the deeper weeds. This third one is another crankbait that's a lightweight crankbait, best to throw on your spinning rods. It's called a DT6. These will run right around 6 feet deep. It's a really good lure to throw around rocks. This thing will bounce off rocks, deflect really well, again coming through the weeds, and you're going to get those medium range bass that haven't come into the shallows and are not quite deep enough. You can use what's referred to as a DT6. Another crankbait we talked about in a previous video for the fall, early winter time, works really good, is a lipless crankbait. This is a little 1/4 ounce lipless crankbait. This will fly a country mile thrown on 6 or 8 pound monofilament test with your medium spinning rod. You can cover a ton of water with this thing, and it just looks like a tiny little bait fish swimming through the water. Deadly again in the fall and early springtime, when the bass are looking to feed up. Just these tiny little lures look like a really good meal. Another really effective lure in colder water is a jerkbait. Jerkbaits come in all different sizes. They come from a lot of different manufacturers that shape them different. This is more of a shad shaped jerkbait. Again, this is a 3/8 ounce. On a spinning rod, you can throw this thing a long distance and cover a lot of water with it. Where you throw it out, give it a couple of cranks to get it down into the water, and then you're just going to give it some jerks, let it sit, reel up that slack, jerk it a couple more times, let it sit. Again, these lighter, smaller lures look like an easier meal for bass where they don't have to try to fight something big. One of my all-time favorite lures to throw is a spinnerbait. Now, most of the time I'm throwing 3/8 to 1/2 ounce bigger spinnerbaits on my bait casting gear, which is a bigger, heavier rod, 7-foot, medium heavy, 7-foot heavy rod. But you can get 1/4 ounce spinnerbaits. And these are great for throwing on this medium action spinning rod. Again, you get a lot of distance, but you can also target cast with a spinnerbait. They're lighter. especially if you're throwing it on 6 or 8 pound test line. It'll sink, and it just makes a smaller profile of a bait fish for the bass to come and get. Now, we talked about one before. It was the shakyhead, done with a 5-inch stick worm. That's really good to throw on the spinning rods. But you can rig any type of worm that you'd like on that shakyhead. Another really effective one, just fun to throw, is get yourself a small little swimbait. You can get these things in anywhere from about 2 inches up to 5, 6, 7 inches. With the spinning rod, I suggest going with more like a 2.5 inch, maybe up to a 3, and get yourself just a small little ball jig head. These work great for just swimming over the tops of grass. You can bounce it along the bottom and through the rocks, throw it up around docks, let it sink down. It's just a little swimming swim bait. Get yourself a single tail grub, and you can catch a lot of bass around every type of cover. Smallmouth and largemouth will eat these things up. You can Texas rig them, and you can put it on a ball-headed jig instead of the swim bait. You put a single tail grub. You just throw this thing out, and you just basically are swimming it back to you. Cast it out, get some good distance, let it sink a little bit to whatever depth you're feeling like, and just start reeling it back. Maybe stop, give it a couple of twitches. But these little 4-inch single curl tail grubs are great for catching bass year round. Now, we had talked about, like I said in the previous video, we were talking about the 5-inch stick worm. You can rig it so many different ways and catch a ton of bass with it. Another one which works really good, and this thing's been around since the beginning of bass fishing, is a 7-inch curl tail worm. These work great in just about every condition, and around just about every cover, rigged any way you can think. These 7-inch curl tail worms work phenomenal. For some reason, I have no idea behind the science of it. I'm not a scientist. A black 7-inch curl tail worm will catch bass everywhere. It just seems to be a color that they really relate to in dark water, clear water, stained water. It works great. Because I love Texas rigging these with a small little just bullet worm weight on it. And you can catch bass year round, especially with that spinning rod. These are straight tail worms. Straight tail worms work great, either Texas rigged with a really light weight on the front of them. You can also throw these on your shaky head. As it hits the bottom, that tail just floats. Just stands straight up and down. Just drag it along the bottom. And that's all there is to it. But they're deadly. So again, your 6'6" or 7-foot spinning rod with some 6 to 8, maybe even 10-pound monofilament test fishing line, you can throw a lot of lures, cover a lot of water. You can get a great casting distance with them. You can get target casting really good with them. So go out, get yourself some of these lighter weight lures and throw those on your spinning rod. Well, folks, I hope this begins to expand your arsenal of bass fishing lures so you can get out, cover more water, cover more areas. When you go out with your buddies, now you've got a more plethora of lures that you can catch bass right alongside of them. If you like this type of information, like and subscribe, and we'll see you later. Have a good day.